So we've got the Mini back on the ground with all our new brakes installed. In part one, we did new StopTech blank rotors in the front. We left the rears alone because those were still good, and they're not ventilated rotors. They're really not going to make that big of a difference anyway, especially in our front wheel drive platform. We have StopTech sport pads on all four corners, and we bled the brakes. We use this Prestone DOT4. It's a really, really good budget DOT4 brake fluid. It's not going to be as good as like a StopTech 600 or a 660, but it still has a dry boiling point of 510 degrees. I have never had any issues with it running it in the Z for long 30-minute track periods at much higher speeds than this car is going to see. And we may eventually add some ducting if we ever take this car to a track, but for autocrossing, this should be more than enough. As you can see, the old fluid was just disgusting and brown and nasty, so it definitely needed to be bled. One of the best things you can do is get yourself like a big 2-ounce syringe like this one and draw all the old fluid out and then fill up the reservoir with new fluid, so that way you're not having to pump all that fluid through it'll make the bleeding process go by a lot quicker. There is a little screen in here you're gonna have to pop out, pull all of your old fluid out, fill in the new, and then put the screen back in. Make sure when you're bleeding you keep an eye on the level, it doesn't drop too low and start sucking air, or you're gonna have to start all over and get a really spongy brake pedal. This little bleeder I've got here is just a bit of hose, a little zip tie here on the end to make sure it's nice and tight no matter what size the bleeder is, and then just a syrup bottle because it already has a hole in the lid. I just fed the hose through it, and I have a little bitty tiny hole drilled right here so that way any air can escape as this comes in. Make sure it's at a nice high level, so caliper up, bubbles up here, and then back down. Really cheap, really easy. I just had my wife hop in the car, give it 3 solid pumps, and then break the bleeder loose. My rear bleeder was clogged, so I went ahead and ordered new ones and replaced all the bleeder screws. So the brakes have had a nice thorough refresh. Funny thing is the front brakes in these car even says BMW on them, so it's so funny how much BMW is actually in this car, which of course, being a giant BMW fan, I am not complaining about. Now that the brakes are bled, we have a nice firm pedal. We've got new pads and new rotors. We're gonna go through and do the bed-in process. Once the brakes are bedded in, we can do a little bit of testing and see just how much better they are than those original brakes. Area where I know it's safe, I can do a lot of stops, not have to worry about it. So I'm going to come around the turn here, I'm going to get up to speed to about 50 or 60 miles an hour and do a heavy stop and just see how the pedal feels. That was a lot better than it felt the other day, and it's a lot better than it felt with the old pads and rotors. So I'm actually pretty impressed with that. I don't know how that compares to the E39. I could definitely feel the ABS kicking in on that, so I know that we are reaching the threshold of what the ABS thinks is acceptable braking with these tires. So that was actually pretty encouraging. The pedal feel is not great, but I can tell that the car is still slowing down. So it's still slowing down at a fast pace, I just don't have a very stiff pedal feel. So that could come down to brake lines, that could come down to just the design of the floating calipers. It could come down to a number of things of why the brake pedal feel is not up to what I'm used to. It could be the pad compound, it could be the caliper type. I don't know, that's just like a little beyond my area of expertise, but that did feel a lot better. It's encouraging. It's definitely enough that I think we'll be okay in the autocross and track events. So I will update you guys as I do autocrosses and go to track days and we do events like that. If you want an update on how these pads and rotors are doing, check back in there. So you see one of those videos come up, I'm gonna give you an update on what I think of them as we do those events. So I was pretty happy with it. It felt pretty good. I would like a firmer pedal. So we're still probably gonna do stainless steel lines. I wasn't originally planning on doing it, but the car is over 10 years old. It's actually almost 15 years old now. So the brake lines are probably getting a little worn, need to be replaced anyway. So while I'm replacing them, might as well do the stainless steel. It's pretty much the same exact price. Honestly, it's probably a little bit cheaper than buying OEM. So I'll get some stainless steel brake lines, and we'll probably do front brake ducts, replacing the little fog lights down there. They don't do anything. I've never turned fog lights on before in my life. So what we'll probably do is replace those. It's already got like a nice little funnel shape to it, and just put some brake ducts, kind of like what the E39 had, just a very basic duct going from the front of a car to the wheel well, not actually like onto the back of the rotor and caliper like I have on the 350Z. So it should be super basic. So that'll be in a future video. We'll put that on. Someone else did something similar and said he got about 50 to 75 degree temperature drop in how hot the rotors got, which, I mean, it's better than nothing. I mean, that's just a nice little window of safety that we can add for when we're going to the track for a 20-minute session. So of course, if you guys have any questions, drop those in the comments below, hit that subscribe button, and I will see you guys next week.